Okay, got it. Jeez. Hi, welcome to the film section podcast. That was so weird. I'm Chris.
And I'm Mark.
Recording in progress.
Yeah.
This week, this week we're this is the second episode. This week we're talking about Cry Wolf, little film from 2005. I had not seen this since it came out, which was 16 years ago. So, I mean, I remembered a little bit of it. Like, I remember really not liking it. And we'll get into it, but I don't understand why I didn't like it. But I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but
No, I mean, as you said, this movie came out in 2005, and so I think I watched it like very randomly when it came on, like Showtime or Stars or something, and
yeah,
and I mean, and I was still pretty young, and so I remember like watching it and being very like much in love with it, thinking it was such a good movie. And then growing up, kind of understanding that it's still a really good movie, but it's not without its flaws.
yeah.
And it's definitely got quite a bit of them. But yeah, so the movie, as you know, as you said, came out in 2005. It was directed and written by Jeff Wadlow, who, if anyone doesn't know, he's the guy that wrote and directed Truth or Dare. Um, that's kind of his
Fantasy Island.
one. Fantasy Island. Yeah, that was a big one. So he's got sort
He's
of a
done some stuff.
spotty. He's got kind of a spotty track record. His movies
I
aren't
actually took notes.
his movies aren't like super popular, or at least critically
Yeah,
well acclaimed.
he for every like hit he has, he has a dud. Like I picked some highlights which people would know. He also did Kick Ass 2, and then I mean this. I don't know if this is probably not a good movie anyway. I didn't see it, but it was a pandemic drop. Bloodshot. He did Bloodshot, and that was like right, because I went to see The Hunt, and Bloodshot was out at the same time, and that was like days later. Everything was shut down.
That's the Vin Diesel thing, right?
Yeah,
It was like
yeah,
based on the graphic novel or something.
yeah,
Yeah, it looked a little
yeah,
like something
yeah.
else. Um, but yeah, so this movie was produced and distributed by Rogue Pictures, who in the early 2000s, like early to mid 2000s, like just dominated that decade basically. Um, and what's I think is really interesting is that the movie had a budget of $1 million, but internationally, domestic and foreign markets made $32.5 million. That's
So
a
like tripled its budget.
like more than that. $1 million
Yeah,
to get $32 million, 32.5 million. Like that's
right.
huge. So like I'm surprised even before we get into the movie itself. I'm surprised that it's not more popular just with how
Right.
much of like an income it made. Because by
Well,
Hollywood standards today, making that much of like a box office, it would have
yeah.
a sequel and a third movie and a fourth movie already in development by now.
Well, the United States, if I'm correct, they did 10. They only did 10 in the United States, right?
Yeah,
It's even weird by that standard that they at least didn't try something else with it.
right. I mean, maybe it was just because the critical reception for this movie really wasn't that good from like audiences and critics. It was sort of like I don't know. A lot of people kind of marked it off as forgettable, which in a way I can sort of understand. But I remember you mentioning the marketing of this movie, um, and so I actually watched a couple of the trailers for it, and
Yeah,
the trailers missold the hell out of this movie.
absolutely.
Like watching the movie, I was sort of like, okay, this is like a mystery, a thriller, there's some sort of like noir-ish kind of elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie is marketed as a slasher.
Yeah,
Like
and I mean,
outright is marketed as.
it has elements, but that's not the main idea of the story.
Yeah, like not at all. And so I think I feel like a lot of people, most of its budget in America was probably made like in that first weekend. And then
Mm-hmm.
because everyone was so misled, they were like, this movie, I mean, like we've seen it happen with so many movies where the marketing, you see that opening weekend and it does great. And then because people were led to believe it was something it's not, ended up word of mouth completely destroys it.
Well, I can tell you one right now. And I mean, it's a remake, so everybody knew. But in terms of a drop off, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake.
I saw that in the theaters.
Me too. First week to second week, huge drop off because people saw it and were like, "Wow, what a piece of shit." Which isn't like that part really isn't the case for this movie. It was just poorly marketed.
Yeah, like and I think it's funny because there's essentially like two trailers for this movie. There's
Yeah.
one where it's the slasher, where it's the quick cuts and the knife sounds and everything like that.
Yep.
And then there's the other trailer where it's just that old school AOL instant messenger with
Yeah.
the Wolf
Yeah.
and Owen 387, and they're just talking back and forth, and it's like that. I was like, if they leaned more into that with the marketing,
I agree.
I think this movie would have been so much more popular.
Yeah, AIM 2005 was it was the hot shit.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. So the movie is about 8 high schoolers at a boarding school who come face to face with terror and learn that nobody believes a liar, even when they're telling the truth. That is the IMDb plotline, which I think is pretty much exactly what it is. These group of high school friends every night play a game called The Wolf, where you have to figure out who's the wolf, who's lying, and these group of friends decide to, instead of making it this little core group of friends, to make it the entire school campus.
Right.
And so premise wise alone, that is such an awesome idea. And I think the fact that the movie starts off with already with a murder. The movie starts off instantly with a local townie getting murdered, and then that's when these high schoolers get the idea to make the game all campus.
Yeah, and what I like about that is the beginning of the movie, you don't realize that that's tied in. It's just slowly revealed up until the end of the movie, which was really cool. I like that because you're like, I mean, you are left wondering, right? Because that's the opening scene. You're left wondering, like, what, like, because it goes right into these high school kids at a prep academy, and you're like, okay, why was there this random murder? Like slowly it's revealed into throughout the rest of the movie, which was also cool.
Oh yeah, no, it's the movie to me it's so interesting because there's the way it starts is not like a mislead, but that opening scene does kind of make you think that it's going to be a slasher. But then when you flip to our main character Owen, who's played by Julian Morris, who meets our other main character Dodger, played by Lindy Boot, instantly you get. I kind of hearken this movie to like a preteen Fincher movie, or like it's dumbed down, but it definitely feels like it's inspired by Fincher. So it's like a 12 or 13-year-old could watch it and would actually grasp a lot of the twists and turns that are going on.
Has that look?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's like a dark movie, like the whole time, basically.
Oh yeah, I mean the color grading is really interesting too, because that that again that opening scene where we see the townie getting killed is very like dark blue and black, and then it contrasts immediately to like bright oranges and yellows when we get to
Yeah.
that prep academy. So it that in itself is really interesting to me, where there's clear choices that are being made. So it's this thing of like when people kind of write it off, saying that like it's not the like the acting is bad, the cinematography is bad, all this is bad. It's like I don't think so. I think there's a lot of thought put into this movie. I just think there's a few parts of the movie that just aren't that just kind of miss the mark by like this much.
Yeah, totally. I feel the same way. Uh, what it, the so yeah, they play the wolf game, and I think what happens next is that they're, I mean, basically the girl Dodger goads them into playing a much more broader game
Mhm.
because they all, I mean, they all seem to be bored of it,
Well,
and they're just looking for like the next. They're looking for the next, go to the next level.
the main character Owen makes the comment about how the game isn't really going to be that fun because everyone knows each other so well. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and so it's they need to make the group bigger just so that it's it's not so, as Dodger said, incestuous between the group like that.
all right,
Um,
and then come up with the idea that they you could include the whole school
mhm, which
by
is really cool,
basically using an email to write an urban legend.
right? Which again
How
at
does
this
this
time
how does
too,
this work?
which again at this time too in 2005, that's when like creepy pastas and stuff were really gaining a
Yeah.
lot of traction and everything too. So it's
Yep.
the this movie is, even though it's dated now, is at the time was like right on the money with like where it fell, where it was right. I would say it was like right ahead of the curve of all the creepy pastas and stuff that were coming out on like YouTube and everything. AOL Instant Messenger was at like its peak right there. Um, you
This
know,
is the year. This is the year that YouTube started.
mhm,
Actually,
yeah.
2005.
So I mean, it's crazy, and so okay, so after they decide to make this school campus wide game, we meet we meet the professor, who is played
Oh,
by John Bon Jovi, who is actually good. Like he's a good actor.
yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't as bad as I thought that he was going to be, or that I remembered.
Mm. I mean, it's still John
He
Bon Jovi, so I'm sitting there like,
The way he was acting made me think. I mean, I didn't remember this movie, so it made me like the movie actually made me think he was the killer
oh
because
yeah,
it was just the way he was acting.
it
You
does.
know?
The movie does a great job with red herrings,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it does like a really good job of making you believe that any one of these people could be the wolf. Um, and so I think as the movie progresses and we kind of are sort of ramping up this tension where you can't tell what's real and what's just kind of a joke played by like the friends. Um,
yeah,
I think the movie excels in this part where it it knows how to keep it knows how to keep the viewer guessing while also keeping them engaged, like not being so like bored, because there is, I mean, for a majority of the movie it's just a lot of talking.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, there's really not like there's not a lot of action. There's not, you know,
But what they do well with where they're in the talky parts of the movie is that they give you a lot of exposition, and
oh yeah,
they kind of round out these characters because you have like 8 main characters, so you got
mhm,
to give each of those people a story. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I think they do that pretty well because what is this, an hour and a half movie, and they have to give you an idea of these 8 people while telling this story. So I think they do that pretty well.
Oh yeah, and I mean the acting across the board is pretty solid. I think the problem is the dialogue that they're given is kind of cheesy at some points.
Yeah,
Um, but like you
yeah,
know, I
yeah.
mean, like you watch who is it? Jared Padalecki, the guy from Supernatural. Like this is one of his like
Yep,
first things. And so it's like you can see
yep.
that he's a good actor. He's got some really funny lines in the movie. Um, but there's a cheesiness to some of the dialogue and kind of like a wonky sort of like misconnect between some of the characters.
Yeah, like how that ginger kid disappears in the beginning of the movie and then becomes a part of the end.
Oh, the he's just pissed because he's fat. That guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that guy. Yeah,
yeah. He comes in one other time, um, when Owen is uh, like you trashed our room or something,
yeah.
or
Oh,
no,
when he says he was like he was I think they were in the library or something, and then he's like, oh, he's like he said something. I think they said something about reporting him to the RA, and he was like, "Yeah, it sounded like you're having a
yeah,
WWF match." Yeah,
yeah.
okay, I remember that part. Yep.
Um, so I mean, and that's another thing is that this movie is pretty tight. You know, I mean, 90 minutes is not long, and I think it has to get a lot done in those 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can kind of in that way I can sort of forgive maybe the dialogue being a little like clunky, or
Right.
maybe some of like the editing feeling a little choppy because you have to do a very not deep but semi-intellectual murder mystery in 90 minutes, which I mean most murder mysteries are usually going to be about 2 hours or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Knives Out. I'm looking at you.
Mhm. But so there's a line in this movie that Bon Jovi says that to me actually perfectly describes what this movie is for me. And it's I like you, but you think you're smarter than you are, which is
Nah.
exactly which is exactly how I feel about this movie. Is that this movie is, I think, way smarter than the general audience kind of gives it credit for, but is
uh,
not nearly as smart as it thinks it is.
do you get the feeling throughout this movie that like Bon Jovi's winking at the camera?
Oh yeah, I feel like he is totally like I feel like he's not that he's not taking it seriously, but
Where he was. Where he was.
yeah, like he feels like a budget of $1 million. I have to imagine that most of that budget probably went to him. So, but yeah, I mean, he does a really good job. But there's a couple parts where, again, like with that line, and then there's another part where Bon Jovi and Owen are playing chess, and like Bon Jovi's like the ignorance of or the arrogance of youth, and Owen's like, "Don't you mean the confidence?" And Bon Jovi's like, "Actually, I meant ignorance," and then schools him with some sort of chess move.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's sort of like that. The banter between Owen and Bon Jovi is exactly how I feel. Like Owen is like the filmmaker, and like as the audience, you're kind of Bon Jovi, and you're like, I want to like you, but like you're kind of like trying to be like a pseudo intellectual dick a little bit.
I mean, once we get to the end of the movie, the way he acts, it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's keep going then. So at this part, our main character Owen is starting to kind of understand or starting to realize that someone going by the alias of the Wolf is sending him messages, is kind of
Yep.
framing him for a few things.
Yep.
And so Owen is now trying to figure out who the Wolf is, which for the most part, again, is good. Um, the scene where him and Tom, the guy from Supernatural, go and find Dodger in the pool, and she like fakes to like drown or whatever.
Yeah.
Awesome scene, filmed really well. Tension is really good.
Yeah.
But when I watched this scene, it sort of made me have a problem with the character of Dodger, where she's I mean, Dodger is very much like a femme fatale kind of character,
Yeah.
which is cool, but it for me, like tonally, she doesn't mesh with the other characters.
Yeah, she's very, very different from everyone else seems like they group well, and then she's like over there.
Yeah,
Very
like it feels like everyone else is in, like a high school thriller, and she seems like she's in a like an old school noir movie trying to like mislead the detective.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like borderline one of those like erotic thrillers.
Mm-hmm. Which is which that to me is where I start to have some of my issues. Is you're one, the movie's not, like as I said, the movie and the script is not this smart to have a character like this. Especially because a
Mhm.
lot of her dialogue is like really cheesy. Like it's just sort of like you're trying way too hard to be
Mhm.
like sexy and like mischievous, and it I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's a total disconnect
yeah.
for me.
Try hard. But then on the other hand, you had Owen who was just having zero clue that the girl liked him. Like
Mm.
I think Tom had to keep telling this dude, like, yo, she's digging.
Yeah, which I I believed until you see the scene with Dodger and Bon Jovi making out in his office.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I guess it, it's obviously a huge clue for what happens at the end.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
but I do kind of have to ask the question of how old are these students?
When I started watching the movie, I didn't quite pay attention. I think they might have shown the sign for the school, but I thought it was like some kind of private college.
I thought it was a high school.
It is a high school, but looking at these students, I was like, is this a college or a high school?
I mean, obviously these are like people in like their 20s, but they're playing high schoolers, and so the question kind of comes like, this takes place around Halloween.
Yep.
Most seniors, when they start high school or when they start their senior year, are 17, and
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know.
Bon
Maybe
Jovi.
this movie kind of overlooked that.
So what you're saying is Bon Jovi should be on Dateline?
Yeah, because I'm just saying. I mean, I know that Dodger is trying really hard to be that 1940s seductress, but she's still underage.
Yeah.
So,
Yo,
yeah,
I don't like. I
she's
want
way
to.
too
I
smart
want
to
to
have been
say.
held back.
I want to say like, wow, that's unbelievable, but these things have happened.
Yeah,
It's not far fetched.
no, it's weird, but
In
yeah,
a movie, I think in movie settings you don't see it a lot.
No,
But yeah, when when you really think about it, it's like senior year, kids aren't 18 yet.
right? Like it's kind of one
And
of those things where like you could have boosted up 1 year.
and this dude had another one, the one that got murdered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
There was, and are there any ladies his age in this town? Like, wherever he lives, what? I don't understand. Is it the molding the young minds? What is it, Bon Jovi? Living on a prayer. That guy.
yeah, dude. I don't know. He just keeps giving love a bad name.
He's giving love a bad name. Buzzing.
But so Bon Jovi he's a real kind of like his character is real kind of slimy. Like he's not
Oh,
he's not trustworthy. He's a statutory rapist. He's
yeah,
a
we just established that.
he I mean, for the majority of the movie, it's being set up that he's the killer.
Oh, for sure. They're
know,
really pulling you towards that, and kind of make you think that janitor guy too.
a little bit, yeah.
But Bon Jovi, they're like, bam, right on it.
Yeah. And so then as the movie progresses and our main character Owen is basically getting framed and getting made to look like a fool over and over again with someone putting a knife in his backpack.
Oh, he actually outed statutory rapist man on that little frame job. Man, he gave it to him in that hallway. He was like, "Get out of here, buddy," and he was like, "Oh, hold up, bro, hold my beer, I got you." He let him know. He's like, I saw your little shenanigans in the office with the underage girl. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna give you another chance, my guy. Misunderstanding.
What? So at this point in the movie, Owen has now started to kind of turn his back on his little group of friends. He's given Dodger the cold shoulder, and so it's when he's in a cafeteria doing his work study gig, which is just being like a custodian. He's mopping the floor.
Well, this is what the dance is going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we realize that he's getting chased by what ends up being just his friends. And this is where I think the movie sort of takes where I think the movie would have stuck the landing, but they kind of fumbled a little bit. Where at this point the tension is so riled up because now you're like, all right, so now anyone can be the killer. Even Owen could be the killer for all we know.
Yeah.
And so, we finally get to the point where Owen texts back everyone and he's like, all right, time to finish the game. He collects everyone into the church for one last game of like, who's the wolf? And everyone starts to turn on him.
Yep.
Of course, led by Dodger.
I do love that this broadening the game brought it back to the original game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was smart. I mean, the movie comes to like a full circle almost in that sense, where again, like the movie is really smart.
It is.
So
Just fall victim.
yeah. So then so after they're like, let's finish the game, they turn on Owen, they're like, you're the wolf because you're the one that has nothing to lose, blah 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 blah.
Right.
We start to find like the bodies of his quote unquote friends. We find the one guy put in like the chapel or the confessional or whatever.
Randall.
Yeah.
The guy's whole storyline was taking a girl's virginity. That was his storyline.
Yeah. Yeah. 2005,
That's all
man.
All you knew about this dude was like he had 30 piercings in his face and he was taking virginity.
Yeah, and he had that fucking manic panic like hair gel just all in his hair.
He was like looking like a husky Johnny Lee Miller from Hackers, without the dye job.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say he looked like a skinny Jacoby Shaddix from Papa Roach.
Yeah. All right. Oh my goodness.
But
Yeah.
so,
This breaks down, man. Like all of a sudden, it's like you have all this exposition and all this talking, and in the last 30 minutes, you just get it's killing.
mm-hmm. and so it's really cool because as Owen is, basically walking in on these people getting murdered, he sees I don't remember his name. The guy who like had like the dreadlocks who was dating the one girl who gets killed in the bathroom. He sees him get killed on the staircase.
Yeah. He's like up at the top and he's yelling down, and like Owen starts running up and he gets right on the staircase. They get him. Yeah, the wolf gets him. Yeah.
Yeah, and so again, that's really cool. And then after that, I think he finds he talks to Dodger.
Yep.
Dodger is starting to walk over to the dorm, and then she gets killed.
Yeah.
And then Owen runs into Bon Jovi.
Oh,
steel horse that he rides.
He gets in that office. He finds the gun in his desk, but then he finds that information that links the beginning to the end here.
Yeah. We find out that Bon Jovi was dating the town that got killed in the beginning of the movie.
And so then, I mean, they're full on going with Bon Jovi. He's the killer. And you're led to believe, and they have a little struggle, and the gun goes off, and Bon Jovi's dead.
Right, and Owen shoots Bon Jovi.
End of the movie, right? We're done.
You think so? And then we find out that none of Owen's friends actually died. That they were playing a trick on him the entire time.
Yep. They were all crying. I hated every one of those people when this ended. I hated every one of those people.
Oh yeah. They all felt so bad and everything. And then we see Owen in the police station. Yep. And I'm going to be honest, I think right there is when the movie should have ended. The movie went on for another 5 minutes where Owen talks to Dodger one more time and calls her out.
It's a case of over-explaining. If they would have left it, if you really thought about the movie, you could have pieced that together on your own.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it would have been a lot more fun. It would have been a lot more fun to have like those like theories and like speculations of like who was the killer and who wasn't and all this stuff instead of Owen being like, it was you because you were jealous.
Yeah, he literally, it's like he had this script in his hand.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and again, that's where the dialogue is like, really, dude?
I was I mean, I like that it ended like that, but like, dude, over explanation.
Yeah, I like that.
I can't pinpoint the movie, but it's usually these twist movies where it's like you think you figured it out and then they hit you at the end, where it's like they flash little images of things that make you go, oh yeah, and then it just ends with no dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I want to say, but like kind of like a Saw movie
Right. Yeah.
without the super theatrics, but
No, like I know what you mean though.
or I'll say Usual Suspects, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, something where it's because yeah,
Spoken, not seen.
when Owen,
Seen, I'm sorry.
yeah, when Owen like tells off Dodger, and he's like, "It was you. You started all this. You planted this. You were jealous because of this, and so you had to kill her." And so it's like, okay, so at this point now we know that Dodger was the wolf. She's the one that killed the townie in the beginning of the
Yep.
movie. She's the one that orchestrated everything. She's the one that planted everything for Owen to kill Bon Jovi. And the way he's describing it and the way it's all happening, it's like, okay. The only good part about that is that Dodger is like, who would believe you? And then walks away. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, I liked that.
You
He
know,
overexplained everything. They could
yeah,
have just looked at each other. If they looked at each other with the right look, everybody would have knew without words, figured it out, and then you just could have ended the movie.
right. Like I think if they had hugged and instead of Owen basically telling her off, if they had hugged and he had walked away, and as he was like walking away, you got those like flashing images, and then he looked back at her and she looked back at him, and it was like, oh, I see you.
Yeah.
Like I think that would have been way better instead of having this really forced explanation.
Now, did you watch a director's cut
Yeah, I watched the unrated version.
or unrated director's cut, whatever it was? Yeah, that's what I couldn't find it anywhere per my sources, so I rented it from Amazon, and I watched I picked the unrated version or whatever because yeah,
It's really not
because
much different.
PG-13.
What?
I said this movie was PG-13, right?
Yeah,
Theatrically.
yeah. I mean the I've seen PG-13 and unrated, and there's really not much of a difference except at the end when they go through like the fake murders. They show like the blood and stuff in those.
Yeah.
And in like the PG-13 cut, they obviously don't show any of the blood or anything like that.
I mean, this also gave me this. Now that we went through the ending, it gave me the April Fool's Day vibes.
I haven't
You
seen
ever see that one?
I haven't seen it in so long.
Okay, but it's a lot of the same. Like where people are getting killed, they make someone look crazy. I mean, it's more outward that you know who the person is because they're all playing a prank. You know what I mean? But like the
Yeah.
people get killed, but then all of a sudden they pop back up and they're like, ah, April Fools.
Yeah.
A couple people go nutty, you know?
Yeah.
Give me that.
Yeah. So again, it like with that ending is again sort of like where I say it feels like a preteen Fincher because had this been like a Fincher movie, there wouldn't have been the dialogue. Because this movie is definitely marketed for that like 11, 12, 13-year-old audience.
Yep.
They kind of have to spoon feed that that ending to you, but I think and that also goes with I think this movie is not as smart as it thinks it is.
Oh, it's definitely it was. I mean, when we went through it and talked about it, it is definitely made for that audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I mean, which is good, and I think in that respect, it's a great movie if you're that like that demographic. But I do think that if you watch this and then you watch say like Zodiac afterwards, you can clearly see where this guy is taking inspiration from Fincher, and where Fincher, if you were to give this same premise to David Fincher, you would have probably a pretty similar movie, but you would have something that's like The Social Network meets Zodiac.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually took notes, and I got a couple things. What else? Oh, what else I got here? Uh, apart from the marketing, which I don't really remember this, but I did mess around on AOL a lot during this time.
Mm-hmm.
America Online also helped publicizing the film in July August 2005, launching an alternate reality game for AIM users to play by sending instant messages to each other, which ran for the duration of the film's promotion. The game itself ran similarly to the popular game Mafia, just replacing townspeople and mafia with sheep. The film was released theatrically in the United States on September 16, 2005. 10 million in the US, 22.5 million internationally, which, wow, that was much more successful, but internationally is huge versus
Yeah.
the US. Worldwide total of 32.5 million. Clearly, this didn't ruin the director's career. I mean, what are your final thoughts on this?
I mean, I personally I really like this movie.
Yeah.
I do think that the fact that I found this movie at age 12 or 13 was I was right in that sweet spot for it. And so I think that if I were to have just found this movie today, I don't know if I'd like it. Rewatching it last week, I really liked it, but that's also because I know the movie already.
I'm trying to draw back to my experience of when it came out, and I think my anger towards this movie was the way it was marketed.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, okay, this wolf guy got a pretty cool look. He's out there slashing people up, and I'm like, all right, let's take it back, baby. Let's go to the slasher. All
Mhm.
right, let's do it. And then I got this, which isn't bad at all by any means. Is it bad? But I think my anger comes from it wasn't what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, which I totally understand. I mean, for some reason, I only ever remember watching the the teaser where it's like the AOL Instant Messenger back and forth. I never watched like the theatrical trailer where it's mismarketed to look like a slasher movie. I never saw that before I saw the movie. So I was pretty blind going into the movie. All I knew was that there's a killer on the loose. That was all I knew about the movie.
I watched those two separate trailers before I watched the movie, and then I was really like, yeah, I think I know what my problem with this movie was.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. So I mean, if I were to rate it out of 10, I think I would probably give this movie like a 6.5, maybe even a little bit closer to a 7 out of 10. Just because I feel like the movie it's such a good idea, and we'll get into kind of how I think it could be fixed in a little bit, but yeah, because I think it's such a good idea. I think the acting is really strong across the board. I think the cinematography is, I think the cinematography and the lighting is okay. The editing itself is kind of sometimes, but all in all, I think it's a solid movie. I think if you're, a sixth grader or a seventh grader, kind of
Yeah,
dipping your toes into horror, I think this is a perfect movie for you.
for sure. I'm gonna give it like a 5.5. I'm gonna put it
Yeah.
middle of the road, but I'm not gonna give it a 5. I'm gonna give it a 5.5.
Same as
Not
same as Malignant.
oh shit. Yeah, okay, a 6. I'm gonna give it a 6. The cinematography was great. What stuck out to me was that library scene
Mhm.
when they're at, like, library basement thing and the lights and everything. That was a
Yeah.
really cool scene. I really, really enjoyed that scene. The acting for a horror movie was pretty well done. Not gonna lie, like I wasn't put off by. I don't think I was put off by any of the characters at all.
Mm-mm.
I think they all played it pretty well. Uh,
Especially given like the
I was
scripts
actually
that they had.
surprised. Yeah, I was actually surprised by the end because again, I hadn't seen it in 16 years, and I was like, I was in there like almost with fresh eyes. Like I remember bits and pieces of it, but like when
Mhm.
we got down to the end, I was like, oh shit, okay. Like I liked the ending, but as we said, I think it was just over explained. Like you're beating the audience over the head with an explanation when you didn't really have to.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I did like it. I did like it. I mean, it's good if you like it. I think it's good for a watch every like 5-6 years because it's a good movie, but it easily can be put out of your mind.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh
So then you
yeah.
can go back to it like, wow, I watched this movie. I don't really remember it. You know what I mean? That's how I went into it. Like I know I had watched it, but I didn't really remember it.
Yeah.
What was the next thing we were going to talk about here? I know
Well,
we had.
so I wanted to I kind of wanted to get into the topic of remakes actually. Um because there's a lot of people shit on remakes and reboots and everything like that. But I think if a movie has a really good idea and a really good premise, but just wasn't executed properly, I think that warrants it to deserve a remake. And I think Cry Wolf especially deserves a remake.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'd be up for that.
Like I think if you trying to think, like if you were to cast who's who's like who's kind of like someone that the general public likes, but you could sort of see playing kind of like a sleazy uh sort of person.
Like for the Bon Jovi role. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
uh oh, that's too over the top. I can't say that. I want to say like the worst people, but like
Right.
uh, all right. uh 3 days later, we're back. So we were talking about how we would want Cry Wolf to be remade today. Uh Go ahead.
I mean, I think like as we were saying, I think Cry Wolf is a movie that deserves to be remade because it's such a great concept, and to me it's such a great like it's a really solid plot line. But I do think that like when you watch Cry Wolf, there's like when you watch it, you can see where it can be better. You watch some of the acting, you hear the dialogue and everything like that. Even some of the camera work, you're sort of like, all right, like you can see where it can be improved upon. Not that it's even bad. So like, I think that if you were to try and remake it now, I think if you gave the Bon Jovi role to like who's the dude from Peaky Blinders, Killian Murphy or whatever.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
if
yeah.
you put like Killian Murphy in the Bon Jovi role, I think he would be awesome in that.
Oh, that guy's great. I love
Right?
him.
I think he'd be able to like kind of tiptoe that line between like you sort of like him and you want to trust him, but at the same time he's so slimy and you feel like he's very untrustworthy.
Yeah.
Like have you ever seen the movie Red Eye?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, like I feel like if he kind of played that same sort of character with just like that attitude that he had in Red Eye, I think that would translate really well to Cry Wolf to be sort of this like professor that you don't trust but you sort of want to, or vice versa.
For sure.
And then in the role of Owen, our main character, that I'm not too sure of, just because it's like I want to come up with a more original take than just be like Timothy Chalamet or Tom Holland or someone like that.
I was really gonna say Tom Holland too.
I mean, I do think that Tom Holland would actually like. I think he would like do a decent job, because I think you have the innocence obviously that like he brings to like Spider-Man and stuff, but you also have a serious, like he's able to do more serious kind of heavy performances. So I think that even if you were to give him maybe some of like the cheesy dialogue, I feel like his delivery would make you believe it a little bit more. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
As for like the other characters, you know, I think you get, you know, I mean, you can get a lot of different actors. I mean, honestly, many of those characters are pretty interchangeable.
Yes.
Like even like the character that Jared Padalecki played, like I feel like, you know, if you got I mean, I think he's still a couple years too young, although he is the age that the movie would be right for. But I would think someone like Finn Wolfhard to take the Jared Padalecki place. I think he would be really good. You know, because we've seen that he can be like comical and funny, but you know, at the same time, it's, you know, we know that he can play serious, and we know that he can play like a character that's comical yet, I'm trying to think of what the word is, like comical and likable at the same time.
Yeah.
And then for Dodger, not what's the chick from Stranger Things?
Millie Bobby Brown.
Yeah, I think she'd be able to do the role of Dodger, because it's the problem that I had with Dodger in the 2005 movie is that she's too serious. Like she's trying so hard to be a femme fatale in a PG-13 horror movie. And so I think if you took someone like Millie Bobby Brown, who can bring sort of the intensity and the seriousness to the role, but she can play it a little bit lighter, where it's like, all right, you actually belong in this movie, and it's not like you're part of some 1940s crime noir.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I think, just because I feel like as I've said, Cry Wolf is a movie that one deserves a lot more like love than I think it gets, but is also a movie that when people go in expecting a slasher and it's not that, I think that also if you kind of change the cast up, you sort of change a little bit how the chemistry between everyone is. I think the movie would honestly be elevated so much more.
With the way technology works now, definitely be updated.
Well, I'm trying to think if you were to remake Cry Wolf, would you still want it to be would you want it to be in the early 2000s, or would you want to bring it up into like the modern, like 2021?
I think I'd like to make it a little modern. like to make it modern.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. I would like to see how they would, where in the original, it's just AOL Instant Messenger, it's stuff like that. So I think it would be interesting to see, people with like iPhones and Androids going around forwarding emails, forwarding text messages, even if you did something with like Instagram where there was like the wolf on Instagram and there was all these different things. I think you could kind of play up a little bit more of the horror aspect and the mystery aspect, especially if, now in this case where if like the wolf were to text someone and be like, I ripped your friend apart or whatever, and they could send a picture of it.
Yep.
I think that would, I think you would add a lot of horror while also still not having to go too gory or too bloody or anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so yeah, so I mean that would be my idea for if you were to remake it, because I think in a world where there's remakes of movies like The Thing that doesn't need a remake, or there's movies like Nightmare on Elm Street that really didn't need a remake because the movies are so good on their own.
Yeah.
Where you look at a movie like Cry Wolf and it's like, yeah, okay, this movie is awesome, but it can be better.
Yeah, there's potential there.
Yeah.
Potential for remake.
Yeah.
There are movies like that, but mostly when they do this, it's just a name grab. They're gonna make name off the money. I don't know if they necessarily care what kind of movie they make.
Oh no, I mean most times they don't. I mean, like if you've seen the new Space Jam movie, it's like it's not a Space Jam movie. That's that's an HBO movie.
I got no reason to watch that shit. No
You
reason.
haven't seen it yet?
No, I'm not gonna watch it.
My brother, my mom, and my dad, we all saw it in the theaters, and visually, it's a beautiful movie visually, but it's basically HBO Max, the movie. That's that's really what it is. It's it's not. It's such a convoluted plot, and it's so like, why is there so much happening in this movie? Where the original is just Michael Jordan gets sucked down a golf hole and has to play with the Looney Tunes, and that's all it is. And then with the new one, it's LeBron James has to save his son, has to beat Don Cheadle, has to play some weird version of basketball that, like, I understand the original Space Jam was not basketball, but this is.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, like I think, when you look at movies like that, like Space Jam, it's, if you were to put a different title to it, I think it probably would have been better. But I think because you tack that name on, that people are just like, you're just trying to make money off of the IP at this point.
Oh yeah, there's a difference. You can tell when they're just trying to make money off the IP or whether or not they care about it,
Yeah, no, definitely. Which is why when I look at a lot of horror remakes or reboots or sequels or anything like that, you can completely tell the difference between the remakes done by people that really care and really love the source material, and then the remakes by people who are just in it for the cash grab.
Did you see they're doing a remake of Slumber Party Massacre?
No, I didn't see that. That'll be interesting.
It's gonna be on Sci-Fi.
Well, have you seen the new trailers for the Chucky series?
A couple of them, yeah.
It looks good. It looks like it'll be fun. I mean, I hated the Child's Play remake, so.
I didn't hate it. It just, I don't know. I felt like it might have been necessary.
But I mean, Child's Play, again, from that remake to me is like, if you had named it something else, it probably would have done better. But because you called it Child's Play, you made Buddy, which is what his name was in the movie, you made Buddy look kind of like Chucky, but his face was all fucked up. I think that movie is that movie to me is a mess. Mark Hamill doing the voice of Chucky, even Mark Hamill couldn't save the movie, which is to me is saying something.
Yeah.
Because that dude is like one of the best voice actors ever.
It's a rare case though with the Child's Play series, because the guy that created it has decided to carry on the original, even though they did a remake. So,
well, it was weird because it was like a legal issue because the first Child's Play movie was under, I think, like the Universal umbrella or something. And then when you get to like Seed, I think that's what it was, unless it was owned by something else. But then when you watch like Seed of Chucky and Bride of Chucky and stuff like that, it's different. They changed the name, and so with the new Child's Play remake that came out a couple of years ago, whoever the owner of those movies, like whatever company owns those movies, retains the rights to the name, but they didn't retain the rights to Chucky. They didn't retain the rights to, I think some of the other stuff too, which is why, even though it's called Child's Play, they still had to change the name of the doll. They had to change how he was created, instead of it being like a weird satanic voodoo ritual to get his body into the body of a doll. It's just an AI, which is like, okay. So I mean, the new Child's Play is just like a weird Black Mirror episode, really.
yeah.
Pretty much all it is.
So, what do we got on tap next week, man?
Well, let's see what our list is. So next week, our movie is going to be Prince of Darkness.
Oh,
which was yours. So yeah, oh hell yeah. So everyone listening and watching, thanks for spending time. Hopefully the weird cut that's going to be in the middle of this video isn't too jarring. And we'll see you next time.
All right.